The notification lit up my laptop screen at 3:57 a.m. while I was finishing quarterly reports in my home office. Your wife Jessica has checked in at the Riverside Hotel. I stared at the glowing message, my coffee growing cold in my hand. We'd installed that family location app 6 months ago when our daughter Emma started driving. Jessica had insisted on it for safety reasons. The irony wasn't lost on me now. The Riverside Hotel was 40 minutes outside Portland, nowhere near her supposed girls' weekend in Seattle that she'd left for 8 hours earlier. My finger hovered over the phone. Call her? Demand an explanation? 22 years of marriage screamed that there had to be a reasonable answer. But my gut, that primal instinct I'd learned to trust during my years as a financial analyst spotting fraudulent accounts, told me something else entirely. I opened my laptop and pulled up our credit card statements, something I hadn't scrutinized in months since Jessica handled most of our personal finances. We'd always had separate accounts for discretionary spending, pooling money for household expenses. Trust, we'd called it. Respect for each other's independence. The charges painted a picture I didn't want to see. The Riverside Hotel appeared 3 times in the past 2 months. Always on her book club Thursdays. There were restaurant charges I didn't recognize, a lingerie purchase from a boutique she'd never mentioned, and, this one made my stomach drop, 2 charges from a place called Discretion Inn, dated on nights she'd claimed to be visiting her sister in Eugene. I sat back in my leather chair, the one Jessica had given me for our 20th anniversary. The home office suddenly felt suffocating, despite its spacious layout and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking our manicured lawn in West Lynn. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Made it safe. Hotel is beautiful. Love you. 3 words that now felt like acid. Love you. I didn't respond. Instead, I did something that would have seemed paranoid just hours earlier. I checked our phone records online. We had a family plan, and as the account holder, I had access to everything. The number appeared dozens of times over the past 4 months. Calls lasting anywhere from 5 minutes to over an hour. Text messages exchanged at all hours. Many during times when Jessica was supposedly grocery shopping, at yoga class, or running errands. I ran the number through a reverse lookup service. Nathan Price. The name meant nothing to me initially, but a quick social media search revealed everything I needed to know. He was the new regional manager at Jessica's marketing firm. 34 years old, 12 years younger than my wife. His profile showed him at company events, beach vacations, hiking trips. Fit, ambitious, single. In 3 photos from the past month, I spotted Jessica in the background. In one, they were standing close together, his hand resting on her lower back. The photo was public. Visible to anyone. To our friends, our neighbors, Emma's friends' parents. How many people had seen this before I did? How many pitying glances had I missed at the grocery store or the gas station? My hands trembled as I took screenshots of everything. The credit card statements, the phone records, the social media photos. Years of analyzing financial data had taught me one crucial lesson. Document everything before it disappears. It was 4:15 a.m. when I finally leaned back, a folder on my desktop now filled with evidence of my wife's betrayal. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the occasional creak of settling wood. This house we'd bought 15 years ago, where we'd raised Emma, where we'd hosted countless dinners and holidays. I thought about waking up Emma, asleep in her room down the hall, home for the summer after her sophomore year at Oregon State. But what would I tell her? How do you explain to your 20-year-old daughter that her mother... My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jessica. You awake? Saw your office light on the security cam. Working too late again. Get some sleep, honey. The security camera. I'd forgotten about those. We had them installed last year after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. Cameras covering the driveway, front door, backyard, and one in the garage. I pulled up the security app and scrolled back through the footage from the past month. Fast-forwarding through hours of mundane comings and goings, I stopped when I saw Jessica's car pull into the garage on a Tuesday afternoon 3 weeks ago. She'd told me she'd be at work until 6 that day. The timestamp read 2:17 p.m. She got out of her car, checked her reflection in the side mirror, and adjusted her blouse. Then, a silver Audi pulled up outside. I could see it through the open garage door. Nathan Price stepped out. Even in the grainy footage, I could see Jessica's face light up as she walked to him. They talked for a moment, standing too close, and then he leaned in. The kiss lasted 15 seconds. Right there in our driveway, where any neighbor could have seen. Where Emma could have come home early from class and witnessed her mother betraying everything we'd built. I watched them pull apart, Jessica glancing nervously at the street before touching his face one more time. He got back in his car and drove away. She returned to the garage, closing the door behind her, and went into the house through the interior door. 20 minutes later, according to the timestamps, she'd texted me, "Slow day at work. Thinking about you." I saved that footage too. The sun was starting to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that seemed obscenely beautiful, given what I'd just discovered. I had a choice to make. Confront Jessica immediately. Let emotion drive my response? Or play this smart, protect myself and Emma from the fallout that was inevitably coming. I picked up my phone and started searching for divorce attorneys in Portland. The sun was fully up by the time I closed the divorce attorney search tabs. My eyes burned, and the coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I wasn't done. Not even close. I pulled up Jessica's work email. She'd given me access years ago when she needed me to forward something while she was traveling. Just one of those small gestures of trust that married couples share. The password had never changed. Her inbox loaded slowly. I scrolled past client correspondence, meeting invitations, project updates. Then I saw it, a folder labeled Bridge Inspections. My stomach tightened. Jessica worked in marketing. What did she need with bridge inspections? I clicked. The first email was from someone named David Walsh, dated 3 months ago. The subject line read, Quarterly Review, Adjustments. Jessica, the revised reports look good. Much more favorable than the original assessments. I've processed the consulting fee to your account as discussed. DW will be pleased with these numbers. Let's keep this arrangement working for everyone. Consulting fee? I opened the attachment. It was a bridge safety inspection report for the Collins Street Bridge. Not the attorney I'd banned from my story, just an unfortunate coincidence of infrastructure naming. The report showed green ratings across the board. Structurally sound. Approved for continued use. I sat back, trying to make sense of it. Jessica wasn't a bridge inspector. She worked in marketing for Caldwell & Associates, a mid-sized firm that handled corporate branding and public relations. Why would she be involved in bridge safety reports? I opened another email, this one from 2 months ago. Same sender. The Hawthorne inspection came back with some concerns from the engineering team. Can you work your magic again? The usual fee structure applies. We can't afford the repairs they're recommending, not with the Jefferson project over budget. Work her magic. The usual fee structure. My hands started shaking again. I opened email after email, each one painting a clearer picture. David Walsh was a project manager at DW Construction, one of the largest infrastructure contractors in Oregon. They held maintenance contracts for dozens of bridges across the Portland metro area and beyond. And Jessica, my wife of 22 years, the woman who cried at Emma's kindergarten graduation, who organized neighborhood food drives, was falsifying bridge safety reports. I found the payment records in another folder, barely hidden under a subfolder labeled Consulting Income 2023. Transfers from DW Construction, $15,000 in March, $22,000 in April, $18,000 in May, $25,000 in June, $80,000 in 4 months. For approving bridges that weren't safe. I pulled up the original engineering reports that were attached to some of the emails, the real assessments before Jessica's revisions. The Collins Street Bridge had significant concrete degradation in 2 support pillars. Recommended action: immediate repair, estimated cost $340,000. Jessica's revised report: minor surface wear, cosmetic only, no action required. The Hawthorne Bridge had corroded rebar in the eastern span. Original recommendation: structural reinforcement, $280,000. Jessica's version: within acceptable parameters, continue monitoring. The Selwood Bridge approach had foundation settling issues. Original: emergency assessment required, temporary load restrictions recommended. Jessica's revision: stable, no restrictions necessary. I felt sick. These weren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. These were bridges. Real bridges that real people drove across every single day. School buses, families. Emma had driven across the Collins Street Bridge just last week on her way to meet friends downtown. I opened a new browser tab and searched for bridge collapses. The images that came up made my blood run cold. The I-35W Bridge in Minneapolis, 2007. 13 people dead, 145 injured. The cause: structural deficiencies that had gone unaddressed. My wife was creating the conditions for exactly that kind of disaster. I kept digging. The emails went back further than I'd initially realized, almost 8 months. But the consulting payments only started 4 months ago, right around the time Nathan Price's name started appearing in her phone records. I found an email exchange from 7 months ago, before the payments began. Jessica had sent David Walsh a message introducing herself, mentioning that she'd learned through mutual connections that DW Construction might benefit from public relations consulting regarding infrastructure project communications. His response was cautious but interested. They'd met for coffee, then lunch. Then the first payment appeared, coinciding with her first revised safety report. But it was an email from 6 weeks ago that made everything click into place. Jessica, Nathan mentioned you might be able to help with the Riverside Crossing project too. Same terms as our other arrangements? We're looking at a $2 repair recommendation that would kill our profit margin on the contract. Let me know what you can do. Nathan Price. Her lover. I pulled up his LinkedIn profile again, studying it with new eyes. Regional manager at Caldwell & Associates. Before that, he'd worked at, I scrolled down, DW Construction, Business Development, 2019-2021. He was the connection. He'd worked for DW Construction, moved to Jessica's marketing firm, and then introduced her to his former employer as someone who could help with their infrastructure problems. And somewhere along the way, they'd started sleeping together. I wondered which came first, The fraud or the affair? Did they bond over their criminal conspiracy, or did the pillow talk lead to the scheme? It didn't matter. They were both guilty. I downloaded everything. Every email, every payment record, every falsified report. I cross-referenced them with the original engineering assessments. I created a spreadsheet documenting each bridge, the original safety concerns, Jessica's revisions, and the payments she'd received. 17 bridges in total. 17 structures that carried thousands of vehicles every day, all approved as safe when they weren't. Also, DW Construction could avoid expensive repairs and protect their profit margins. And also, Jessica could collect $80,000 in bribes. The affair suddenly seemed almost quaint by comparison. She'd betrayed me, yes. She'd destroyed our marriage. But this was betraying an entire community. This was putting lives at risk. Emma's life. My life. Everyone's lives. I found my phone and started searching for the Oregon Department of Transportation contact information. It was Sunday morning, barely 7 a.m., but this couldn't wait. I drafted an email to their Infrastructure Safety Division, attaching the most damning evidence. Then I stopped. This needed to be bigger than an email. This needed to be airtight. I called the divorce attorney's office I'd been researching earlier. Brennan and Cole, highly rated, experienced with complex asset cases. I left a voicemail explaining I needed an urgent consultation regarding divorce and potential criminal matters. Then I called a second number I'd found, the FBI's Portland field office. FBI Portland, how may I direct your call? My voice was steady. Surprisingly steady. I need to report infrastructure fraud and public endangerment. I have documentation of falsified bridge safety inspections in exchange for bribes from construction contractors. There was a brief pause. Sir, I'm going to transfer you to our public corruption unit. Please hold. Classical music filled my ear. I stared at my laptop screen, at the spreadsheet I'd created, at the evidence of my wife's crimes. The affair had broken my heart. But this was going to break everything else. This is Special Agent Ryan Foster. I understand you have information about infrastructure fraud? I took a breath. Yes. My wife has been falsifying bridge safety inspection reports for DW Construction in exchange for payments totaling at least $80,000 over the past 4 months. I have emails, payment records, and copies of both the original engineering assessments and her falsified revisions. 17 bridges in the Portland metro area have been approved as structurally sound when they're not. Sir, I'm going to need you to come in to make a formal statement. Can you do that today? Yes? And these documents, do you have legal access to them? The financial records are from our joint accounts and her work email that I have authorized access to. She gave me the password 2 years ago. Okay. Don't delete anything, don't alter anything. Can you be here at 9? I looked at the clock. 2 hours. I'll be there. After I hung up, I sat in the silence of my office, watching the morning light stream through the windows. Outside, a neighbor was walking their dog. A car drove past. Normal Sunday morning sounds in our quiet, upscale neighborhood. Jessica would be waking up soon, probably in Nathan's arms at the Riverside Hotel. She'd text me something cheerful about her fictional Seattle trip. Maybe send a photo of the Space Needle she'd pulled from Google Images. She had no idea that her entire life was about to collapse. Neither did the thousands of people who would drive across those 17 bridges tomorrow morning on their way to work. But they were about to find out. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I kept the mug in my hands anyway. Something to anchor me as dawn broke over the neighborhood, painting everything in shades of pink and gold that felt obscene, given what I'd spent the night uncovering. My phone buzzed. Jessica. Morning. Seattle's gorgeous. Meeting starts at 9. Love you. I stared at the message. The Riverside Hotel was 40 minutes outside Portland, not Seattle. She was probably still there with Nathan, maybe ordering room service, laughing about whatever lie she'd tell me next. I didn't respond. Instead, I returned to the emails I'd been reading. The ones that made the affair seem almost quaint by comparison. The first exchange I'd found was from April 14th. David Walsh from DW Construction to Jessica's work email. Jessica. Appreciate you taking my call. Nathan speaks highly of your expertise. The Collins Street assessment came back worse than expected. Our engineers say it needs full structural reinforcement, 2.3 meters. We weren't planning for this quarter. Nathan mentioned you might be able to review the inspection data with fresh eyes. Would love to discuss over lunch. Jessica's response, 3 hours later. David. Happy to take a look. Sometimes these assessments are overly cautious. Send me the full engineering report and I'll review this week. I'd pulled up Collins Street Bridge on Google Maps. Major arterial route. Thousands of cars daily. I drove across it twice a week. The engineering report David sent was 47 pages of technical analysis. I wasn't a structural engineer, but the conclusions were clear enough. Severe concrete spalling on support columns 3, 7, and 11. Rebar exposure indicates advanced corrosion. Load capacity compromised by estimated 30–40%. Immediate remediation required. Jessica's revised assessment, sent 2 days later, was 3 paragraphs. After thorough review of inspection data and photographic evidence, initial concerns appear overstated. Surface deterioration is cosmetic rather than structural. Recommend continued monitoring with standard 6-month inspection cycle. Bridge remains safe for current traffic loads. The payment came through 5 days after that. Wire transfer, $4,200 to an account at Pacific Northwest Credit Union I'd never heard of. An account in Jessica's name. I'd found 16 more exchanges just like it. Hawthorne Bridge. Original assessment called for $1.8 million in cable replacement. Jessica's revision, cosmetic rust, no action needed. Payment, $3,800. Selwood Bridge approach ramp. Cracking in the concrete deck, water infiltration compromising the foundation. Original recommendation, immediate closure for emergency repairs. Jessica's revision, minor surface cracks, schedule routine maintenance. Payment, $5,500. The amounts varied, but the pattern was identical. DW Construction sent engineering reports showing serious structural problems. Jessica rewrote them to downplay the damage. Money appeared in her hidden account. $80,000 over 4 months. 17 bridges. I'd cross-referenced the dates with our credit card statements. The affair with Nathan had started around the same time. First hotel charge was April 18th, 4 days after that initial email from David Walsh. The question that had kept me awake: which came first? Did Nathan seduce my wife to rope her into fraud? Or did the money come first, and the affair was just a bonus? I'd found a partial answer in an email from May 3rd. Nathan to Jessica's personal Gmail. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you. David's thrilled with how smoothly everything's going, by the way. Says you're a natural at this. We make a good team, in every way. So Nathan was definitely involved. The connection between DW Construction and my wife. I still didn't know if he was getting a cut of the money, but he was at minimum the facilitator. My phone buzzed again. Emma, texting from her bedroom upstairs. You're up early. Everything okay? Couldn't sleep. Work stuff. Go back to bed. Kay, love you, Dad. I closed my eyes. Emma, 20 years old, home for summer break, sleeping peacefully upstairs while I sat here discovering her mother was a criminal. Not just an adulterer, a criminal who'd taken bribes to falsify public safety reports. People drove across those bridges every day. Families, kids. They trusted that someone had checked, had made sure the infrastructure was sound. Jessica had sold that trust for $80,000 and a 34-year-old boyfriend. I opened the folder I'd created on my desktop. Evidence. Everything was there, organized chronologically. Screenshots of emails. Bank statements showing the wire transfers. The original engineering reports alongside Jessica's falsified revisions. Phone records showing calls between Jessica, Nathan, and David Walsh. Credit card statements showing the affair. I'd also downloaded everything to 3 USB drives. One for the FBI, one for my attorney, one for insurance. My meeting with Special Agent Ryan Foster was at 9 a.m. I'd spoken with him briefly around 4 a.m. after finding the FBI's public corruption hotline. He'd been skeptical at first, probably got a lot of crank calls. But when I'd started reading specific bridge names and dollar amounts, his tone had changed. Mr. Brennan, I need you to stop talking and listen carefully. Don't delete anything. Don't confront anyone. Don't tell your wife you found this. Can you come to our office at 9 a.m.? Yes. Bring everything. Every email, every bank record, every document. And Mr. Brennan, if what you're telling me is accurate, you may have just prevented a catastrophic infrastructure failure. That phrase had been echoing in my head for hours. Catastrophic infrastructure failure. A bridge collapse. Cars plunging into the Willamette River. Deaths. All because my wife wanted money and a younger man. I pulled up the most recent engineering report, dated 6 days ago. The Burnside Bridge Eastern Approach. The original assessment was marked urgent in red letters. Critical fatigue cracking in steel support beams. Immediate load restrictions required pending emergency repair. Current traffic levels pose significant collapse risk. Jessica's revision, sent yesterday. Cracking within acceptable parameters for bridge age. Recommend standard monitoring protocol. No immediate action required. Payment pending. $6,200. The Burnside Bridge carried 26,000 vehicles daily. I'd looked it up. 26,000 people driving across a bridge that engineers said could collapse under current traffic levels. And Jessica had approved it as safe because DW Construction didn't want to spend money on repairs. My hands were shaking. I set down the coffee mug before I dropped it. The security camera footage was still queued up on my second monitor. I'd watched it a dozen times, but I clicked play again. Jessica in our driveway 3 weeks ago, checking her reflection in her car window. The silver Audi pulling up. Nathan getting out. All confidence and expensive haircut. Jessica's face lighting up like Emma's had on Christmas morning when she was 6. The kiss. Long, deep, familiar. Not their first. Jessica's hand on his chest, his hand on her waist, then lower. Her laughing at something he whispered. Another kiss before he got back in his car and drove away. All of it captured in crisp 1080p by the security system we'd installed because of break-ins in the neighborhood. The irony would have been funny if everything else wasn't so catastrophic. I checked the time. 6:47 a.m. 2 hours and 13 minutes until my FBI meeting. Jessica's location still showed the Riverside Hotel. I wondered when she'd leave. when she'd start the drive back to Portland, practicing whatever lies she'd tell me about her Seattle conference. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? Mr. Brennan, this is Special Agent Foster. I know we're not scheduled until 9, but I've been reviewing the preliminary information you provided. I need to ask, do you have the original engineering reports? The ones before your wife's revisions? Yes, all 17. And you're certain these are authentic, not drafts or preliminary assessments? They're marked as final reports from certified structural engineers, signed, dated, stamped with PE licenses. I verified 3 of the engineers. They're all licensed and employed by independent inspection firms. Silence on the other end. Then, Mr. Brennan, I'm going to be direct with you. If these reports are accurate, we have 17 structurally compromised bridges currently carrying full traffic loads. We need to move faster than 9 o'clock. Can you come in now? My heart hammered. Yes. How soon can you be here? I looked around the office, my laptop, the USB drives, the printed documentation I'd been organizing. 45 minutes. Make it 30 if you can. And Mr. Brennan, don't stop for anything. Don't take calls, just get here. He gave me the address. Federal Building downtown, 7th floor. I was already moving, shoving the laptop into my bag, grabbing the USB drives, the printed files. My hands were steadier now. Purpose, maybe. Or just shock giving way to something colder. Emma's door was still closed as I passed. I paused, almost knocked, almost woke her to say, "What? Your mother's a criminal and I'm about to burn her life down?" I kept walking. The drive downtown was surreal. Morning commuters heading to work, stopping for coffee, completely unaware that some of the bridges they'd crossed today had been flagged as dangerous by engineers and approved anyway by my wife. I parked in the Federal Building garage at 7:34 a.m. Special Agent Foster met me in the lobby himself. Tall, late 40s, the kind of face that had seen too much to be surprised by anything. Mr. Brennan. He shook my hand. Let's go upstairs. The Federal Building lobby was sterile and cold at 7:34 a.m., all polished granite and metal detectors. I stood in line behind 2 attorneys in expensive suits, my laptop bag heavy against my shoulder. Inside were printed copies of every document, the falsified reports, the payment records, the text messages between Jessica and Nathan that referenced the Walsh situation. I'd stopped shaking around 5 a.m., somewhere between printing the evidence and watching the sunrise that felt like an insult. Now I just felt hollow. Next. The security guard waved me forward. I placed my bag on the conveyor belt, walked through the detector, and waited while they examined my laptop. Normal procedure. They had no idea what was on it. 7th floor, I told the receptionist. I have a 7:45 appointment with Special Agent Foster. She checked her computer, nodded, printed a visitor badge. Elevator bank to your left. He'll meet you in the lobby up there. The elevator was empty. I watched the numbers climb and thought about Jessica, probably still asleep at the Riverside Hotel. She'd texted me again at 6:30 a.m. Morning. Breakfast with the girls, then heading home around noon. Love you. I hadn't responded. The 7th floor lobby was smaller, more utilitarian. A man in his early 40s stood waiting. Dark suit, close-cropped hair, the kind of neutral expression that probably came from years of hearing terrible things while maintaining professional composure. Mr. Stevens? He extended his hand. Ryan Foster. His grip was firm but not aggressive. He led me down a hallway lined with identical doors, into a conference room with a rectangular table and no windows. A younger woman was already there, laptop open. "This is Special Agent Lauren Mitchell," Foster said. "She specializes in infrastructure fraud cases. When you called yesterday, I brought her in immediately." Mitchell nodded at me. She looked to be in her mid-30s, blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Mr. Stevens, I understand you have evidence of systematic bridge inspection falsification?" I set my laptop bag on the table. 17 bridges, 4 months. At least 80,000 in documented bribes. Probably more I haven't found yet. Foster's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "Walk us through it." I opened my laptop, pulled up the side-by-side comparisons I'd created. Collins Street Bridge first. The original report with its detailed documentation of concrete degradation. The revised version claiming cosmetic damage only. "My wife is a certified bridge inspector working for the County Transportation Department," I said. My voice sounded strange, too calm. "Jessica Stevens. She's been altering inspection reports for DW Construction, a contractor that handles bridge maintenance and repairs. This is Collins Street Bridge. The original assessment, filed by her on March 15th, identified severe structural problems requiring $2.3 million in immediate repairs." I pulled up the second document. This is the revised report she filed 2 days later. Same bridge, same inspection date, but now it only needs minor cosmetic work. Estimated cost, $45,000. Mitchell leaned forward, studying the screen. "And you can prove she filed both? Digital signatures, timestamps, access logs from the county system?" I pulled up another folder. "Her work computer syncs to a cloud backup. I have administrative access to our family accounts. Everything's here." Foster was making notes. "You mentioned bribes." I pulled up the bank statements. Payments from something called Cascade Infrastructure Solutions. 83,000 over 4 months, deposited into an account she opened without telling me. I traced Cascade back to DW Construction. It's a shell company they use for consulting fees. "How did you trace it?" Mitchell asked. "Secretary of State Business Registry, cross-referenced with DW Construction's corporate filings. Cascade has the same registered agent, same business address. It exists solely to make payments that don't show up as coming directly from DW." I could see Mitchell and Foster exchange a glance. This was more than a suspicious spouse with circumstantial evidence. This was documented proof. "There's more," I said. "Nathan Price. He's regional manager at my wife's marketing firm now, but he worked for DW Construction until 6 months ago. Project coordination. He's also—" I paused, then pushed through it. "He's having an affair with my wife. Has been for at least 2 months. Foster's pen stopped moving. "You're certain?" I pulled up the security camera footage, the timestamp showing 11:47 p.m. Jessica and Nathan in our driveway. Showed them the phone records, the hotel charges, the location app notification that had started this whole thing. "I discovered the affair first," I said. "Yesterday morning, 2:47 a.m. But when I started looking into her activities, I found the inspection fraud. The affair and the bribery scheme are connected. Nathan's the link between Jessica and David Walsh, DW Construction's project manager." Mitchell was typing rapidly. "Do you have communications between them discussing the inspections?" "Text messages. Jessica deletes them from her phone, but they're backed up to our family cloud account." I pulled up the folder. "Here. March 18th, Nathan to Jessica. Walsh says the Collins revision looks perfect. Package will arrive Tuesday. Tuesday was March 21st. She received a $15,000 deposit from Cascade that day. Foster leaned back in his chair. Mr. Stevens, I need to ask you something directly. Why are you bringing this to us instead of confronting your wife? I'd known this question was coming. Because people's lives are at risk. The Burnside Bridge carries 26,000 vehicles a day. Jessica's original report flagged it as a critical collapse risk requiring immediate load restrictions. Her revised report approved it as safe. If that bridge fails, I stopped, swallowed. I'm angry about the affair. I'm devastated. But this is bigger than my marriage. The room was quiet for a moment. What do you want to happen here? Mitchell asked. Not unkindly, but direct. I want the bridges inspected by independent engineers. Immediately. I want the ones that are actually dangerous closed before someone gets killed. And I want everyone involved held accountable. Jessica, Nathan, David Walsh, whoever else at DW Construction knew about this. Foster nodded slowly. What we're looking at here is public corruption, bribery of a public official, fraud, and potentially multiple counts of reckless endangerment. Federal charges because these are federally funded infrastructure projects. Your wife could be looking at 10 to 20 years. The words hit harder than I expected. 20 years. Emma would be 40 when her mother got out. I understand, I said. And you're prepared for what happens next? Foster continued. We'll need to move quickly on the bridge inspections. That's a public safety emergency. But once we start that process, it becomes public. Your wife will know you reported her. Your family, your community, everyone will know. I thought about Emma, asleep when I'd left the house. About the text message from Jessica that was probably arriving right now. Just finished breakfast. These girls are so fun. Wish you were here. I'm prepared, I said. Mitchell pulled out a legal pad. We'll need you to sign a formal statement. Then we're going to need copies of everything you have. The inspection reports, the financial records, the communications, all of it. We'll get subpoenas for the county's servers, DW Construction's records, the bank accounts. But your documentation gives us probable cause to move immediately. How long before the bridges get inspected? I asked. Foster checked his watch. I'll have our Portland field office contact the State Department of Transportation within the hour. They'll mobilize emergency inspection teams. Any bridge your wife flagged as critical in her original reports will be restricted or closed by end of day. End of day. The Burnside Bridge would be closed before evening rush hour. Thousands of commuters would be stranded, furious, demanding answers. And when those answers came, Jessica's name would be everywhere. There's one more thing, I said. Jessica doesn't know I've discovered any of this. She's currently at the Riverside Hotel with Nathan Price. She thinks I believe she's in Seattle with friends. She's planning to come home around noon. Foster and Mitchell looked at each other again. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Don't contact her, Foster said. Don't let her know anything's wrong. We need time to secure the evidence from DW Construction before anyone can destroy records. Can you keep up the pretense until we're ready to move? I thought about responding to her text message. Typing out, have fun, drive safe, while knowing what was coming. Yes, I said. Good. Foster stood. Agent Mitchell will take your formal statement. This is going to take a few hours. Then you go home, act normal, wait for us to contact you. Probably tomorrow morning. We'll coordinate the arrests simultaneously. Your wife, Nathan Price, David Walsh, and anyone else we identify as involved. Arrests, Plural. My wife in handcuffs. I nodded. Mitchell opened her laptop. Let's start from the beginning, she said. When did you first become aware of irregularities in your wife's work? Yesterday, I said. 2:47 a.m. I got a notification that she'd checked into the Riverside Hotel. The house was too quiet. I sat in the kitchen, Sunday morning light streaming through the windows, watching Emma make pancakes. She hummed something off-key, completely oblivious to the fact that her mother was still at the Riverside Hotel with Nathan Price, probably just waking up in tangled sheets. My phone sat face down on the counter. Jessica had texted twice already. Morning. Seattle traffic is terrible, but the conference has been amazing. Miss you both. Grabbing brunch with the team before we head back. Should be home around 4. Love you. I'd responded with a thumbs-up emoji. Nothing more. The effort required to type actual words felt monumental. Dad, you want chocolate chips? Emma held up a bag, grinning. I know Mom says they're not breakfast food, but she's not here to judge. Sure, sweetheart. My voice sounded normal. That surprised me. She dumped a generous handful into the batter. You okay? You look tired. Couldn't sleep. Work stuff. The Henderson account? She'd been hearing me complain about that analysis for weeks. A convenient cover. Yeah, just need to finalize some numbers. My phone buzzed. Not Jessica this time, Agent Foster. Coordination complete. Arrest teams positioned. Will move at 1600 hours when subject returns home. Recommend you and your daughter be elsewhere. Will notify you when scene is secure. 1600 hours, 4 o'clock. Exactly when Jessica said she'd be home. The timing was almost poetic. Emma, I kept my voice casual. How about we catch a movie this afternoon, that new one you wanted to see? She flipped a pancake, eyebrows raised. On a Sunday afternoon? You never want to go to the movies on Sunday. Trying something new, humor your old man. Okay, weirdo, she smiled. But you're buying the popcorn. We left the house at 3:15. I drove slowly through West Lynn, past the manicured lawns and expensive cars, wondering how many of my neighbors would still make eye contact after tomorrow's news cycle. The arrest would be public. Federal agents, multiple vehicles, cameras probably. The theater was in Teagard, far enough away. I bought tickets to some superhero thing Emma had mentioned. Extra large popcorn, candy. She kept giving me strange looks. Seriously, are you okay? You're being weird. Just want to spend time with you before you head back to school. Not a lie. In 3 weeks, she'd return to Oregon State. By then, her mother would be in federal custody. Her family name would be synonymous with corruption, and every bridge she'd ever driven across would feel like a death trap. My phone buzzed at 4:07 p.m. Subject in custody. Secondary subject also detained at separate location. Scene secure. You may return home after 1800 hours. We'll need your statement tomorrow, 0900, Portland FBI Field Office. I stared at the message. The movie played on. Explosions, dramatic music, people around us gasping and laughing. Emma was absorbed, eating popcorn by the handful. Jessica was in handcuffs, probably in the back of an unmarked car, confused and terrified. They'd gotten Nathan too. Secondary subject at separate location. Had they grabbed him at his apartment? At the hotel? I wondered if she'd asked for me yet. If she'd tried to call. I turned off my phone. We got home at 6:30. The street looked normal. No news vans yet. No obvious signs of what had happened. But I noticed things. Tire marks on our driveway that weren't there before. A business card wedged to the front door frame. Emma spotted it first. What's this? I took it before she could read it. FBI. Agent Foster's name and number. Probably solicitors. I'll handle it. Inside, the house felt different. Violated. They'd been here. Federal agents walking through our rooms, photographing evidence, maybe taking Jessica's computer, her files. I didn't know exactly what they'd seized. The warrant would spell it out. I'm gonna shower and call Megan, Emma said, already heading upstairs. Thanks for the movie, Dad. Even if you were being super weird. Anytime, sweetheart. Alone in the kitchen, I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls from Jessica's number. 9 voicemails. Dozens of texts. I didn't open them. Not yet. Instead, I called the number Agent Foster had given me. He answered on the first ring. Mr. Thompson? So they knew my name now. Of course they did. What happens next? Your wife and Nathan Price are being processed. They'll be arraigned tomorrow morning, federal courthouse downtown. Charges are public corruption, bribery of a public official, wire fraud, and reckless endangerment. We're still building the case, but what you provided gave us enough for the arrest. Has she said anything? A pause. She's requested an attorney. That's all I can tell you. And the bridges? Emergency inspection teams deployed 2 hours ago. We've closed 3 bridges already. Structural engineers found critical failures that match the original reports you discovered. The ones she'd overridden. His voice hardened. You may have saved lives, Mr. Thompson. If one of those bridges had collapsed during rush hour, he didn't finish. Didn't need to. The media's going to find out, I said. Already have. Press conference scheduled for tomorrow at 10. Transportation Secretary will be there. This is national news. Systematic infrastructure fraud, public safety, federal corruption. Your wife's name will be everywhere by tomorrow afternoon. Emma. God. Emma would see it. Her friends would see it. Everyone at Oregon State would know. I need to tell my daughter, I said, before she sees it online. I'd recommend that. Foster's tone softened slightly. And Mr. Thompson? You should prepare yourself. Your wife will likely try to contact you. She'll want you to post bail, hire attorneys, stand by her. You need to decide now what your boundaries are. I've already decided. Good. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 for your statement. Bring any additional evidence you've found. And if you haven't already, you should contact a divorce attorney. He hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the kitchen where Jessica and I had shared 22 years of breakfasts and dinners and midnight conversations, and finally opened her voicemails. The first one was panicked. What's happening? They're saying I'm under arrest, that I falsified safety reports. This is insane. Call me back, please. The second was crying. I need you. Please. I don't understand what's going on. They won't tell me anything. They took my phone. I need you to call my lawyer. Please. The third was angry. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? They're saying you gave them evidence. That can't be right. Call me back right now. The fourth was desperate. I know about Nathan. I know you found out. But this other stuff, the bridges, I can explain everything. It's not what it looks like. Please. I need you. I deleted them all. Then I opened her texts. The most recent was from 30 minutes ago, sent from a number I didn't recognize. Probably her attorney's phone. They're saying you turned me in. Tell me that's not true. Tell me you didn't do this. After everything we've been through, please. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Finally, I settled on the truth. You endangered thousands of people for money. You had an affair. You lied to me, to Emma, to everyone. I did what I had to do. I sent it. Blocked the number. Upstairs, I heard the shower turn off. Emma would be down soon, asking about dinner, chattering about her friend Megan's new boyfriend, completely unaware that in less than 24 hours, her entire world would implode. I needed to tell her. Tonight. Before the news broke. Before her friends started texting, before social media exploded, before she saw her mother's face on television in handcuffs. The thought made me physically ill. My daughter was about to learn that her mother was a criminal, that the woman who'd raised her, who'd taught her to drive, who'd helped her pick out her prom dress, had systematically endangered public safety for $80,000 and an affair with a man barely older than Emma herself. How do you even begin that conversation? I heard her footsteps on the stairs. Dad, can we order pizza? I'm starving. I turned to face her. She was wearing Oregon State sweatpants and one of my old t-shirts, hair wet, face fresh and young and trusting. Emma, sweetheart, we need to talk. The coffee in my hand had gone cold hours ago, but I couldn't remember when I'd last tasted it anyway. Emma sat across from me at the kitchen table, her phone face down between us, a small mercy I'd requested before starting this conversation. The morning light streaming through the windows felt accusatory, illuminating every careful lie her mother had constructed over the past 4 months. Maybe longer. I still didn't know how long. Dad, you're scaring me. Emma's voice cracked slightly. 20 years old, home for the summer, and I was about to destroy the foundation of everything she thought she knew about our family. I set the mug down. My hands weren't shaking anymore. That had stopped sometime around dawn, replaced by something colder and more permanent. Your mom was arrested yesterday afternoon. I need to tell you why before you see it on the news. The color drained from her face. Arrested? Is this a joke? I wish it were. I pulled out my laptop, then stopped. How much did she need to see? The affair evidence felt gratuitous, but the bridge reports were public safety documents. The line between protecting my daughter and preparing her blurred in ways that made my chest tight. There's no easy way to say this. Your mother has been falsifying bridge safety inspection reports. She's been taking bribes from a construction company to approve bridges that structural engineers flagged as dangerous. Emma stared at me like I'd started speaking a foreign language. That's insane. Mom works in marketing. She doesn't inspect bridges. She was assigned to the Public Infrastructure Safety Division 6 months ago. Quality assurance role, reviewing engineer reports before final approval. I'd learned this detail from Agent Foster during one of our middle-of-the-night conversations. She had the authority to override recommendations or approve inspections as filed. But she wouldn't. Dad, there has to be a mistake. I turned the laptop toward her, pulling up the first document I'd prepared. Not the hotel receipts or the text messages. The bridge report for the Collins Street overpass, dated March 15th. The original engineer's assessment flagged stress fractures in the support beams, recommended immediate closure pending repairs, estimated at $2.3 million. Jessica's approval, stamped 2 days later. Secondary inspection completed. Structural concerns within acceptable parameters. Approved for continued operation. Look at the date, I said quietly. Then look at this. The second document showed the emergency inspection ordered by the FBI on Sunday. The Collins Street overpass had been closed within 4 hours. Barricades erected, detour signs posted. The stress fractures had propagated since March. Another 6 months, the consulting engineer estimated, and catastrophic failure became probable during peak traffic loads. Emma's hands trembled as she scrolled through the report. How many? 17 bridges. 3 were closed immediately on Sunday. The rest are under emergency review. Oh my God. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. People could have died? Yes. She looked up at me, and I saw the exact moment the full weight landed. You said she was arrested. How did they... Did you turn her in? The question I'd been dreading. The one that would define our relationship going forward, probably forever. I could lie. Let her think the FBI had discovered it independently. But she deserved the truth, even if it meant she'd hate me. I found evidence of the bribes while investigating something else. I contacted the FBI early Sunday morning. Investigating what? I hesitated. The affair felt personal, almost petty compared to the public safety violations. But Emma was looking at me with Jessica's eyes, demanding the complete truth. Your mom was having an affair with someone from her office. I discovered it Saturday night and started looking through financial records to understand the scope. I pulled up the bank statements showing the deposits. That's when I found these payments. $83,000 over 4 months deposited into an account I didn't know existed. Emma's face cycled through expressions too quickly to track. Shock, denial, anger, grief. She pushed back from the table, the chair scraping against the hardwood with a sound that set my teeth on edge. An affair? She laughed, high and sharp. You're telling me Mom was cheating and taking bribes? No, I don't believe this. Emma, show me proof, real proof, not just some bank statements that could be anything. I didn't want to do this. Every instinct screamed to protect her from the uglier details, but she was right. She needed more than my word. I pulled up the security camera footage, the timestamp showing Thursday evening, Jessica checking her reflection before Nathan Price pulled into our driveway. Emma watched in silence as her mother walked to the silver Audi, leaned through the passenger window, kissed a man 12 years younger than her. The footage quality was crystal clear, our expensive security system capturing every detail I'd paid to install after the neighborhood break-ins. The irony still tasted like battery acid. His name is Nathan Price, I said, pausing the video. He's a regional manager at your mom's firm. He used to work for DW Construction, the company paying the bribes. He's the one who introduced your mom to their project manager. Emma's eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying yet. So the affair and the bribes are connected? The FBI is investigating that angle. I don't know which came first. I closed the laptop, unable to look at the frozen image anymore. Nathan was arrested yesterday too. Same time as your mom. Where is she now? Federal detention. She'll have an arraignment hearing, probably tomorrow or Tuesday. Agent Foster had walked me through the timeline, his voice professionally sympathetic as he explained how federal cases proceeded. She'll likely make bail unless they determine she's a flight risk. Can I see her? The question caught me off guard. I don't know, maybe, if she's allowed visitors. I need to hear her side. Emma stood, wrapping her arms around herself. There has to be an explanation. Maybe she was being blackmailed or threatened or... Emma. I kept my voice gentle. I know you want there to be a good reason. I wanted that too. But the evidence is overwhelming. The FBI has payment records, falsified reports with her digital signature, communications between her and the construction company. This wasn't coercion. It was deliberate. She shook her head, backing toward the doorway. You don't know that. You just found some stuff and decided she was guilty and called the FBI without even talking to her. 3 bridges were closed on Sunday because they were structurally unsound. The Collins Street overpass could have collapsed during rush hour. Hundreds of people could have died. My voice came out harder than I intended, and Emma flinched. The silence stretched between us, filled with everything we couldn't take back. "I need to be alone," she said finally. I nodded, watching her disappear upstairs. Her bedroom door closed with careful precision, not a slam, which somehow felt worse. The quiet click of someone trying very hard to hold themselves together. My phone buzzed. A text from Agent Foster. "Press conference scheduled for 2 p.m. You should prepare Emma. Story breaks nationally within the hour." I stared at the message, then at the cold coffee, then at the laptop still showing frozen evidence of my wife's betrayal. 22 years of marriage, and it came down to timestamps and bank deposits and security footage that captured the exact moment everything I'd believed turned to smoke. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the front window, I could see an unmarked sedan in the driveway, and my stomach dropped. More FBI agents? Had they found something else? But when I opened the door, the woman standing there wore a visitor's badge from the county jail clipped to her blazer. "Mr. Thompson? I'm Rebecca Lawson, your wife's attorney. Jessica asked me to deliver this to you personally." She held out a sealed envelope, my name written in Jessica's distinctive handwriting across the front. I didn't open the envelope until after the press conference aired, after Emma locked herself in her room, after the first news van appeared on our street. Rebecca Lawson had waited on the doorstep with the patience of someone accustomed to delivering bad news, but I'd sent her away with nothing more than a curt nod. The letter sat on my desk for 3 hours before I broke the seal. "Michael, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to, but you deserve to know the truth even if it doesn't matter anymore." It started with Nathan, not the Bridges, him. He made me feel young again, seen again. "You were always working, always tired, always somewhere else even when you were home. I know that's not an excuse. It's just what happened." When he mentioned David Walsh needed help, it seemed harmless at first. Review some reports, provide a second opinion. The money was supposed to be consulting fees. By the time I understood what I was really doing, I was already in too deep. They had emails, records. I couldn't stop without destroying everything. I told myself the engineers were being overcautious, that the Bridges were fine, that I was just correcting bureaucratic overreach. I know now how stupid that sounds. How dangerous. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the affair, for the lies, for putting people at risk. I'm sorry for what this will do to Emma. Most of all, I'm sorry for throwing away 22 years with a good man who deserved better. I don't expect you to come to the trial. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know that somewhere, buried under all the terrible choices, there was a woman who really did love you. Jessica. I read it twice, then fed it into the shredder. The trial took 9 months. Jessica pleaded guilty to 14 federal counts in exchange for testimony against Nathan Price and David Walsh. The prosecution presented my evidence, every email, every payment, every falsified report. The defense tried to paint her as a victim, manipulated by younger men and corporate pressure. The jury didn't buy it. 23 years in federal prison. Nathan got 18. David Walsh got 25. Emma attended the sentencing. She sat 3 rows behind her mother, crying silently while the judge detailed the scope of Jessica's crimes. Afterward, she asked if I thought Mom would survive that long in prison. I told her I didn't know. I told her it wasn't our problem anymore. The divorce was finalized 2 months later. Jessica signed everything from detention, splitting our assets down the middle except for Emma's college fund, which I kept entirely. Her attorney didn't fight it. The bridges took longer to fix. Emergency repairs cost the state $47 million. 6 structures required complete reconstruction. The Collins Street overpass was demolished and rebuilt over 18 months. I drove past it once during construction and had to pull over, hands shaking on the wheel, thinking about all the times Emma had crossed it on her way downtown. The engineering firm that had filed the original reports received a commendation. The county transportation department underwent a complete audit. 17 people lost their jobs. New oversight protocols were implemented. Dual sign-offs, random third-party inspections, rotating assignments to prevent long-term relationships between inspectors and contractors. They named the new regulations the Public Infrastructure Safety Act. Nobody called it that. Everyone just called it the Jessica Thompson Law, which felt like the worst kind of legacy. Emma transferred to University of Washington for her junior year. Too many people recognized her name in Oregon, she said. Too many questions. We talked every Sunday. Careful conversations that avoided anything deeper than her classes or my work. She didn't visit for Thanksgiving. Christmas was strained and brief. "Do you hate her?" she asked me on Christmas Eve, the two of us sitting in the living room where Jessica used to put up a 10-foot tree. I'd thought about that question for months. No, I hate what she did, but hate takes energy I don't have anymore. I wrote her a letter, Emma admitted. I haven't sent it. I don't know if I should. That's your choice, not mine. She nodded, staring at the small 4-foot tree I'd managed this year. Do you think she meant it? That she loved you? I think she loved a version of me that she'd created in her head. The same way I loved a version of her that turned out not to exist. I looked at my daughter, 21 now, older than her years. Real love doesn't risk other people's lives for money. Real love doesn't betray trust and call it consulting fees. Emma was quiet for a long time. I keep thinking about the bridges, about all the people who drove across them not knowing. How do you trust anything after that? It was the same question I'd been asking myself. How do you drive across a bridge without wondering if someone cut corners? How do you trust that the people responsible for keeping you safe actually care? You do the best you can, I said. You verify what you can verify, and you accept that sometimes the only person you can fully trust is yourself. 2 years later, I stood in the Portland FBI field office receiving a civilian commendation for public service. Agent Foster shook my hand in front of cameras and reporters, praising my courage and civic responsibility. They asked me to say a few words. I kept it brief. I didn't do this for recognition. I did it because people's lives were at risk. Because my daughter drives across those bridges. Because doing the right thing isn't optional when lives are on the line. Someone asked if I'd spoken to Jessica since the sentencing. I said no. They asked if I ever would. I said I didn't know. The truth was more complicated. She'd written me 4 times from prison. I'd read each letter once and filed them away, unread. Maybe someday Emma would want them. Maybe not. Either way, they weren't mine to destroy. Emma graduated from UW with honors. I flew to Seattle for the ceremony, sat in the stands with thousands of other parents, and watched her walk across the stage. She'd made it through despite everything. That felt like victory enough. At dinner afterward, she told me she'd been accepted to graduate school for civil engineering, specializing in infrastructure safety. Because of Mom, I asked. Because of what happened. I want to make sure it doesn't happen again, that the systems work, that people like her can't slip through. She paused. Is that weird? No, it's exactly right. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen in 2 years. I'm going to visit her, next month. I wanted you to know. My first instinct was to argue, to protect her from more disappointment. But Emma was an adult now, making her own choices about forgiveness and family and what she could live with. Okay, I said. That's your decision. You could come with me. No, I couldn't. She nodded, accepting it. I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it for me. So I can move forward without wondering. Then I hope you get what you need. 5 years after that morning when a notification changed everything, I sold the house in West Lynn. Too many ghosts, too many memories embedded in the walls. I bought a smaller place in Bend, closer to the mountains, farther from bridges and federal buildings and everything that reminded me of who I used to be. Emma visited for the housewarming. She brought her fiancé, a structural engineer she'd met in graduate school. They talked shop over dinner, discussing load calculations and stress analysis and new monitoring technologies. I listened and realized my daughter had taken the worst thing that ever happened to our family and built something meaningful from the wreckage. Mom would be proud, Emma said later, the two of us alone on the deck watching the sunset. Maybe. She asks about you every time I visit. I didn't respond. I'm not saying you should forgive her. I haven't, not completely. But she's different now. Older, smaller. She knows what she did. Good, Emma sighed. I used to be so angry at you, for turning her in, for not trying to fix it. I know. I'm not anymore. You saved lives, including mine, probably. I drive across bridges every day without thinking about it, and that's because people like you made sure they're actually safe. She looked at me. Thank you. I never said that. Something in my chest loosened, just slightly. You're welcome. The moral of this story isn't complicated. It's not about revenge or justice or even doing the right thing, though all of those played their parts. It's about the moment when you have to choose between protecting the life you've built and protecting the lives of strangers you'll never meet. It's about understanding that love, real love, doesn't ask you to compromise your integrity. It doesn't ask you to look away when people are in danger. It doesn't trade safety for comfort or truth for convenience. Jessica made her choices. I made mine. In the end, we both had to live with the consequences. The difference is that I can still look at myself in the mirror. 17 bridges were repaired. Thousands of people drive across them every day, never knowing how close they came to disaster. Emma builds better systems to prevent it from happening again. And I live in the mountains, where the only bridges I cross are small wooden things over creeks that couldn't hurt anyone even if they tried. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes survival is its own kind of victory. And sometimes, the hardest thing you'll ever do is choose the truth over everything you thought you wanted, and discover that you can live with that choice after all.